Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jordan Soto, and I'll be your host for your Hart Energy webinar, Maximizing Uptime with Electrical Resiliency as a Service. Before we dive into the content, there's just a few housekeeping notes that we need to review. First, by default, you've joined in listen-only mode using your computer speaker system. If you prefer to join over the phone, all you need to do is select phone call in the audio pane, and then the dial-in information will be displayed. Even though all attendees are in listen-only mode, we want to hear from you. All you have to do is submit your questions at any time throughout today's presentation by typing them into the questions pane of the GoToWebinar control panel. If our speaker runs out of time during our Q&A time, they will follow up with you and address your questions individually. During today's webinar, we'll discuss energy challenges facing the oil and gas midstream sector, defining electrical resiliency as a service, how resiliency as a service can help, as well as why it's gaining popularity. Our speaker is Nick Kazis, Vice President of Sales at Enchanted Rock. If you want to read more about him, you can on this screen. And without further ado, Nick, the floor is yours. Please take it away.
Well, thanks, Jordan. I really do appreciate it and appreciate everybody joining on the webinar today. So when we kind of talk about from Enchanted Rock and who we are, we break it down into three major pillars for us, especially in the oil and gas. And it's, what is the U.S. electric grid today? And breaking it down on those three, we talk about advanced age. I always relate the grid very much to automotive. You have an older vehicle. We know there's maintenance. There's newer versions coming out, and so understanding that from a vehicle perspective, it's almost identical to the grid where we have aging equipment that's out there, infrastructure that does need upgrades, as well as there's new technology coming out there that's pushing the grid. And so understanding that from a resiliency side and backup energy side is a big piece there. Severe weather is, it's self-explanatory, but really, what we're seeing pretty consistent now is not just the normal, and we'll discuss this a little bit later out through the webinar, but it's not the normal stuff that you can predict. I lived in Florida for over 10 years, and we knew when hurricane season was coming in, you kind of predict that. There's so many different things that are going out there. A couple months ago, there was a tornado on the coast. We're seeing a very, very large uptick of that. And so how does that really work and blend in specifically with resiliency and making sure that's covered there? The last one here is digital and physical threats. You think about this from a data perspective and making sure that security is taken care of. If there's any outages, and how do you protect yourself, your business, and the company itself, as well as the consumers. And so making sure that these three major pillars are taken care of through Resiliency as a Service and through Enchanted Rock are key core part of our business. So we talk about the problem, power outages. The three major ones for us is frequent and disruptive. Expensive, we understand that, but frequent is the outages, and what I spoke about just a second ago. We're seeing consistent outages and peaks coming throughout the years, year over year, from 2000 to 2019 is the study that we have on the screen here. And what you're seeing here is that there's more outages, whether it's from someone running into a pole and taking out the electricity there, all the way down to any type of severe weather coming through, whether it's cold or heat going into it, but it's getting more and more frequent going out there specifically for our outages. Disruptive, that is a key piece to kind of talk through. When you talk about what is disruptive when it comes to power outages, we know, okay, the electricity goes off, what do you do? What we don't talk about is how do you get back up to full speed? How does the business get back up to 100%, whether it's from the manpower, what the infrastructure is in place, what are the processes and procedures that you have to put in there, and really understanding what that cost is associated and dollarizing that to your business. The expensive part, obviously, we know is, if you're down, what does that do to your employees? What does that do that to the business? What does that do that to the customer experience? What we see pretty consistent coming through in the expense part is not only what it's going to cost your business, but what others are doing around you. And from a market share perspective, what your loss could potentially be. So we talk a lot about what is the problem, and we can tell every type of vertical, everything in particular, what the problem is. What we really see specifically in the oil and gas side is the domino effect. Some of you on here may already have processes and procedures in place, already putting upgrades in place, already understanding this, but others don't. So the reality is that others can really affect you and your book of business without backup power. So we talk about the vulnerabilities of the oil and gas industry today. We understand that you have infrastructure, you have gas availability. Um, that's one thing that you have versus a lot of others out in the industry that are trying to figure out this backup power problem. But the vulnerability is really comes back down to is the gas processing terminals, the storage, the pipeline, and again going back onto it, it's a domino effect of what happens specifically when others aren't prepared as well in your area. Cascading effects of single outages to gas transmission is definitely a huge piece there, and really just kind of understanding what the next steps. What the map shows here is really just kind of where we're at today in the US and where we're continuously growing into it, and how you may fit into that. The solution is electric resiliency as a service through dual purpose microgrids. Today, you hear a lot about microgrids. You hear about what they can do, what it looks like, but really, how does that work into the oil and gas business? You know, when you hear turnkey backup power, it really what that means to us, and it should mean to you, is providing, owning, operating, maintaining true electrical solutions, specifically in your book of business. What we do well is we are that all purpose. So we have a microgrid that's dual purpose, and breaking that down is, the first primary is making sure you have backup generation specifically for your site. The second is, being able to take advantage of the programs that are currently out there today that can drive down the total cost of ownership of these microgrids, and allows you to have more adoption specifically while still, hitting the need of making sure there's backup energy and power for you. On-site outages and protections and flexible capacity. What that really means is that we understand that not every site, not every business is created equal. Our gens and our systems allow us to be flexible, allow us to really create a solution specifically to your book of business. There's so many things from utility power to how the load controls are, how you use battery storage, how you can use solar, through the microgrid ATS, and just resiliency on a local basis as well as commercial basis. And so being able to participate in grid stability programs that allows you to subsidize not only the cost of the actual pieces of equipment, if you would like to call it that, the gensets, but it also allows you to really be able to have that backup storage and be that beaming light specifically in your community. So when you talk about futures and benefits of resiliency as a service, we tend to talk a lot about with our existing customers is reliability. We are in the energy game, and so we really understand, and we are, the professionals specifically in this field. You're not talking to a company that has a couple pilots out there. We have hundreds of microgrids active in the US today using renewables, and really have the facts that come behind that. So reliability to our customers is our number one pillar, is why it's the first thing on this list here. Cost effective, we understand from a CAPEX perspective, you need to be conscious of not only what your cost is associated with it, but allowing you to be able to effectively deploy this with the budgets that you have and any type of constraints that you have associated with it. Being clean, obviously with ESG out there and making sure that you have this as something that is a path to getting to your emissions goals, to whatever that looks like, allows you using renewables, we all know, lowers it, and our gensets are able to be at net zero. So that gives a very, very large path or bridge specifically to any type of ESGs that are going through it. The one thing that a lot of other microgrid companies have out there they talk about are their NOx systems, or 24/7, 365. Our NOx systems are not a couple guys in a backup basement, picking up the phone, trying to figure it out. We don't outsource this one. We actually took this in-house, and it's made us so just efficient, not only for a customer experience perspective, but also from, resiliency and making sure the reliability is there. Our NOx system is in-house and it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. We really do take pride in this. This gives us by far just ahead of the game for anyone else that's out there trying to offer that microgrid. Is because we do take that in-house. We have a very large team that's out there, monetizing this one for you to making sure you have backup energy as well as any type of driving revenues that are associated with it. The quiet and impact piece of this one really came about with a large portfolio of healthcare facilities where we understood from the decibel perspective that it needed to hit a certain threshold. The last thing we want to do is have loud, noisy generators in the background, causing any types of, business disruptions or anything sort like that. So being able to hit that measurement of 68 decibels at a 7 meters is a big piece for us, as well as the other part is the compact. Compact allows us to not only help anybody who is trying to build backup generation and microgrids out into their area in their book of business. The configurations, an 8-foot by 10-foot, our generators can be easily installed and arranged accordingly where we need to. Prime example, we had a very large critical infrastructure that we put in place that was in the 30 megawatt stage, and we were able to do that over a weekend. And part of that is because the configurations and the way that we have built it out systematically, and kudos to our engineering team who helped kind of build through that on the R&D side, is it allows us to do this at a mass production, because understanding that you're not putting yourself into just one large generator and God forbid anything goes wrong with it, but being able to put impactful and a footprint that we can adjust as needed is a big piece for our customers. That allows us to be flexible to their needs and as well as the land sites that they have available. But the last one we do have is the renewables. And what that really is for everybody out there, and we kind of touch base a little bit there, is that our gen sets are very agile. We have the ability to really work friendly with so many other types of power and renewables that are out there. When you talk about 5-10 years ago, solar was the biggest thing that was out there at that point in time, and microgrids were starting to come into play. And so we're understanding that solar and power wind, as well as understanding propane, hydrogen, and blends. What we do really, really well is being flexible for our customers, understanding their needs, and being able to kind of address those needs while coinciding with already current renewables that are out there. So when you talk about a full turnkey behind the meter resiliency as a service, a lot of people say, okay, well, let's just go ahead. What does that actually mean? And so for us, we really have 5 different ways of describing what this turnkey, and so many different people behind closed doors that really help get this. So system design and engineering, the site evaluations, electrical, mechanical, and civil, understanding grid synchronism in island mode, having professionals specifically in that type of vertical that allows us to kind of get there. By far, our team in the construction and commissioning and EPC is just top notch. Allows us really not only from a project management but commissioning standpoint, permitting, and so forth, to push that forward. Resiliency as a service, when talking about financing and CAPEX, being able to have a solution for you all that would allow you to not only monetize but budget in a correct way, and allow us to be obviously the energy experts. But when you talk about our customers today, they really see the huge value of not only having resiliency as a service, but really having it at a financial piece that makes sense for them, specifically for their sites and operations. I talked a little bit about obviously the 24 hours NOC, but really the maintenance scheduling, asset management, market operations, and billing and settlement. Having a team, an entire team that is dedicated specifically to you and your business is a huge part of resiliency as a service that allows you not only to monetize it, but it really does allow you to kind of get back to your true book of business and let us really support you in making sure that's the right thing. Another one is the what ifs. The what ifs are preventative maintenance and making sure from an O&M perspective, that we are out there, whether it's on a biweekly site visit, load test runs. Our technicians are on 24 hours, 7 days a week, and they truly do just care about making sure that our customers are happy, the experience is happy, as well as being able to have parts and critical parts specifically to repair them in a timely manner. We understand uptime. We understand that your business is hugely important and making sure that you're running at all times the hours that you need to. And so being able to have the O&M team specifically to kind of manage that one at the highest level is a big, big piece of our success and our customer experience. So, what I love kind of talking about, it's really good to kind of give you graphs and tell you a little bit more about everything. All this really shows you is it's our gen sets, they run at 450 kW. There's 3 back to back, but you can really see not only from the way that they are set up from the pillars to the airflow to how they're systematically put in place, and it allows it very easy for us not only to build out, but it's modular in size for scalability. That's really what it comes down to is we understand that you may need 1 megawatt, you may need 100 megawatts. Being able to build this out on a scalable side is a big, big piece of our business and allows customers to really just enjoy this process with the teams and the support that we have. So we talk about lower cost risks and emissions and higher expectations. When you're talking about resiliency as a service, there's 2 ways to kind of talk through this. Some of our customers love to have the owner run it themselves, process. And we are 100% open and support that. We maintain the generators going into it, but really resiliency as a service, it has been our number one differentiator for us compared to others. Being able to not only monetize it, drive your CAPEX down, make it to where you have a consistent, resilient gen set that allows you not only to, be able to have your business up and running. We keep it at a 99.99995% uptime on that one, and that's a very big shoes to fill. Not a lot of people can do that, and we do it with hundreds and hundreds of microgrids that are active in the U.S. today. So what I like to do is talk numbers, right? What do these numbers really mean on the screen for you? So 294 operational microgrid sites. It's a beautiful thing to say. Again, when I talk about what the landscape is out there today, you're talking to true veterans that are in the industry with operational microgrids active in the U.S. 294 and continuously growing into that. That's close to about 600 megawatts that are commissioned, with additional close to almost 400. We're basically at a gigawatt of megawatts under commission, which is by far one of the largest in North America. You're talking to Enchanted Rock, where we are not a company with some pilots that are out there at whether it's a port or whether it's through any of the things that are out there today that you hear in the news. We are pretty consistent at spreading our message of resiliency and making sure that the outages are being covered in the times of need. So when you look at the big number of 12,419 hours of utility outages covered, what does that really mean? That's just a number. But when you think about backup generators in the US today, on average, are using 20 to 30 hours on an annual basis. And then you think about being able to cover that 20 to 30 hours and divide that by the 12,000 that are already being covered. Those are storms, those are blackouts, those are different types of scenarios that you can implement and really think about in your book of business. If you were out for a day, 2 days, 5 days, what does that look like? How many hours does it look like? And really understanding how we've been able to be that shining pillar specifically for the community and our customers, and making sure that we have that covered. I talk about the 99.99995% combined reliability. That's a big piece for us. When you talk about walking away and really allowing someone else to make sure that your company is up and running, That's a scary thought. So when you talk about Enchanted Rock, we have hundreds of active microgrids. We have basically a gigawatt of megawatts going to be commissioned in 2023, going to 2024. We have covered multiple outages with over 12,000 hours of utility hours covered. And now you're talking about reliability of 99.9995%. Those are key factors in any decision making for our customers that we ask you to vet through and see who can actually stand by that. We stand by that, and that is why we are a premier source specifically for resiliency as a service and microgrids in the US. So let's talk facts. You know, how do we do in Texas? There's obviously February 2021. Most people have seen the Texas winter storms and the microgrid performance. What does that look like? Again, over 200 Enchanted Rock microgrids operating in Texas today. 8 consecutive days run in support and outages and grid services. So think about that. 8 consecutive days run in support of outages and grid services. Think about if you were down for a day or two. Now add that into 8. What does that do for your business? And being able to have an opportunity to make sure that you are up and running is key. 2/3 of the fraction of employees supporting customers and operations, 143 customer sites that that experienced grid outages and were protected. So when we have over 200 active, and during this storm, 143 were truly had outages that we protected, that shows who is the premier service provider for microgrids and resiliency as a service out there. 176 generators with over-the-air software, cold temp upgrades while running. This is a big piece. You think about this, and that's just in Texas, but all over the nation, there's heat and cold, and how do the generators really perform during that? But the big one for me, and just being proud of what we were able to do for the community, was 0 safety accidents during the event. That's just a huge thing. When you think about all those factors specifically with any type of winter storm or any type of severe weather or any type of outages, Enchanted Rock was there for everybody and making sure that our customers and the customer experience was there. So we say trusted by, these are our badge of honors. These are customers that stand by us through any type of winter storms, any type of outages, and making sure that resiliency is there for them. So from the grocery store chains, if you're in Texas, you know HEB, obviously, many know Walmart. From the healthcare, citizens have amazing, back end stories of specifically how they help through surgeries, critical infrastructure and water, specifically with SAWS and CWA, manufacturing and talking through what that does to their business. Utilities, these are just 3 of many major utility programs we have in place that we work with and attach ourselves with onto it. But CPS, Entergy, and Hart Energy are just great partners of ours. From the data center, Microsoft has just been such a great partner of us, specifically into their data centers and doing that. Education, automotive, Texas A&M, we are a proud Texas, company, and want to make sure that we provide locally, but as well as on a national scale, so that we have plenty of educations that we support on that. And through the automotive, display, we have multiple OEMs we work with. In this case, Ford is one of the major ones that we've done that, specifically in North America and Texas. So I really do appreciate it. I did put my information on here, and then I will lead it off to Jordan.
Thank you so much, Nick. That was a wonderful presentation. I learned so much, and now it's time for us to dive into the Q&A portion of our webinar. So we'll open up the floor for Q&A. You can submit your questions. You may have submitted your questions throughout the presentation. All you have to do is type those into the questions pane in the control panel. We actually have our first question in already. So Nick, they want to know, how did Enchanted Rock perform during the winter storm?
Oh, wow. Tough question there. A lot of different teams were just on key. We not only we performed, but we overperformed. On one of those slides, I kind of talked about how we had 0 accidents and how we really supported hundreds of microgrids active on that. Not only did we, perform with the uptime that we needed to, but everybody from your local retailers were able to provide the community with food and water. The healthcare facilities were able to do surgeries and take care of emergency patients. And I can go on and on what was supported, but our system specifically, not only did they run at the exactly what we were told to do and how we present to do as resiliency, but we did it in a very consistent way that people just didn't feel it. Those people that had our microgrids active in their sites and were in the communities that could take effect with that one. Um, Whether you knew it or you didn't, you probably used Enchanted Rock during those times, and we're really, really proud. A lot of us work and live in the area, and so we understood as well, where to go, and making sure that resiliency was out there for us. So we were definitely very proud of that.
And then an offshoot of that, what amount of capacity can Enchanted Rock generators back up?
Oh man, good question there. We see things from customers all the way from 1 megawatt, and we go all the way up to 100 plus megawatts. It's the ability to be scalable and modular allows us to really kind of identify the true customers that really need resiliency and be able to kind of create a solution for them. So the answer is 1 to 1 million, but the reality is we really kind of deep dive on the business where they need resiliency and how we can support it. But from an easy answer, 1 to 100 is an easy way.
And then another question just came in. Can we use our own gas source to power Enchanted Rock gens?
Oh, absolutely. I think when you think about that from a operational and also just a capex, if you can use your own gas, you save money, and you also know where it is. You can control it from a P&L perspective. That's a big piece. So from oil and gas, that's the one piece that others don't, is we're looking for gas. So if you want to let us borrow it here and there, kind of go from there. No, but you know, when you talk about that, ideally, if you have the availability for gas, absolutely, you can use yours. There's programs in place for that, as well as it allows you to kind of from a cost saving perspective.
So we have so many questions coming in. We only have one time for one more question. So last question here: what other advantages do dual purpose microgrids have?
Wow. Well, you talk about from the resiliency side, and that's really having that uptime and making sure that your business is impacted. The secondary part of the dual purpose microgrid is allows you to be adaptable. So from anything from if you already have solar out there, and we kind of talked a little bit about it, as well as revenue streams. And so in certain areas, specifically in the states, there's programs that are out there. That's the second part of that dual purpose. It allows you to take advantage of those ones and kind of engage into those programs that are out there, drive that capex down, which allows really for you to have a quicker adoption, specifically in your areas, as well as, again, just supporting the business. All great questions.
Yeah, I know. And like I said, we have so many more, but unfortunately, we are out of time. So Nick will follow up with you individually and address those questions. You can see his contact information on the screen here, and we'll also be distributing that in the chat as well. So if your question didn't get answered, if you have additional questions, just feel free to contact Nick. He'll get those answered for you. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Hart Energy webinar featuring Enchanted Rock. I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. I hope you did as well. If you'd like to rewatch this webinar, it'll be on demand, available to you next week. So have a great day. Thank you so much for joining.